So I'm here today to do my my February book haul. What even month is it? February. I'm here to do my February book haul. This is also the first video I'm filming on my new camera, which should work really the same as my old camera. It's just an updated version, so I hope I am sort of in focus and the colours all okay. I mean, it's kind of dull outside, so the lighting's not going to be fantastic, but as long as it's clear enough for you to see the books, I guess we are working with what we got. So yeah, I'm going to show you the books that I've recently acquired. You know what a book haul is? I'm rambling. I'm actually going to start with the books I was sent for review, mainly because there's not many of them. There's only 3. Technically there's 2 books that were sent to me for review and then a subscription box. So like I said, I thought I'd just start with those so I could show you the subscription box, because this is one of my favourite subscription boxes. I usually unbox it over on Instagram, but the theme of this one just is so fabulous. I had to share it in this video and sort of save it all in its packaging. I have had a peek inside to share with you, and it's the Books That Matter subscription service. So Books That Matter have been sending me these boxes for a few months now to review, and I absolutely love them. They have a focus on like women's voices and feminist literature throughout their boxes, plus they come with a few knickknacks. So this month's theme was Girl, Woman, Goddess, I believe. So it's a pun on the Girl, Woman, Other book title by Bernardine Evaristo, and there's a sort of goddess-esque theme in here, which you know I love as a Greek mythology buff. So this is what they look like inside, and if I show you, like I said, I've already peeked inside. The book that this comes with, even more aptly, is The Emperor's Babe by Bernardine Evaristo. So this is obviously another one of her titles, not Girl, Woman, Other, but this one is about a young Nubian woman living in Londinium, which was the ancient Roman settlement in the UK, in England, during the Roman Empire, and it's AD 211, and it's all about her life in Londinium, which I just think is so fantastic. It's also written in verse, and I have always wanted to read this book. Plus this is the most stunning edition, so I think this is such an excellent pick, because I also think it's one of Bernardine Evaristo's less well-known books, so there's a chance that people won't have picked it up before. But on top of that, there's also a bunch of super cute little extras that come with it. Now, I have to admit, I had no chill, and 2 of those extras immediately went on my laptop because it came with 2 gorgeous stickers. So we have this one here of Medusa with her snake here, and this sort of ethereal looking version of Artemis, I imagine here, the huntress goddess of Greek mythology. And yeah, they had to go on my laptop. I had no chill, I couldn't wait, so there we have it, they're on there. But I still wanted to share them with you. And you get a little booklet that tells you all about everything that's inside, including the artists that are responsible for some of the bits and pieces. We then have a beautiful bookmark of Aphrodite, which again is by an artist that is commissioned for each box. A notepad, which I'm in love with. This is so stunning. It's called Myths and Tits on the back, which I assume is the brand, and I love it. So excited for this. I kind of wish it was a print for my wall. We also have like a little jar of wasted breath here in the back. I think it's just really, really, really fun. So this is gorgeous. We also have I Am Enough Watermelon Overnight Gel Mask to Make You Glow Girl Inside and Out. I love a face mask, so this is what I'm definitely going to be using. And then lastly, a tote bag in my favourite colour, my Tayad, which is sort of lilac-y purple, which says Girl Gang, and it's a bunch of goddesses. So I absolutely love this box. This is definitely one of my favourite boxes I've got from them so far, and I wanted to show you in detail in this haul video. But obviously, most importantly, is the book, and that was, like I said, Bernardine Evaristo's The Emperor's Babe. We then, like I said, have 2 more books that were sent to me for review, and the first one is one that I'm so excited for. It's so stunning, and I've read parts of it in the past, but never all of it, because it is Burns for Every Day of the Year by Pauline Mackay. So this is a collected volume of Burns poetry, aka Robert Burns, the quintessential Scots poet, one for every day of the year. I am not 100% sure, but I think some of them may be extract rather than entire poems, because I always remember Tam O'Shanter being longer than it is in this book. I should probably have double checked, but otherwise a ton of them are the full full poems, and the idea is that this can be shared among like adults and children. It's not necessarily exclusively for adults to read Burns poetry, but a nice way for like growing readers to experience Burns. I love Rabbie Burns, and like I said, I've read a bunch of his poems, but I've never read all of his poems, so this is just a really nice collection for me to sort of refamiliarise myself with ones that I've read in the past, but also like experience some new ones. Plus the author, like I said, who obviously hasn't written the poems, Pauline Mackay, has added like extra text about Burns and Scotland in the era of Burns, and his poetry to go alongside each day in each poem. So I think this is stunning, plus genuinely like aesthetically stunning because of the cover design, and it was sent to me by Black and White Publishing, which are in themselves a Scottish based publisher that I really admire. So love this. We then have another book with a younger audience in mind, but can definitely be enjoyed. Oh my goodness, I've only got one earring on. What happened to the other earring? How long has that been going on? Okay, well, I'll just take this one out too. Moving on. I have another book which, like I said, is aimed at a younger audience, but can be read by all ages, and it's one that I'm super excited to peruse, which is How Life on Earth Began, Fossils, Dinosaurs and the First Humans by Ina Bestard. And this was originally written in Spanish and has been translated and published in English by Thames and Hudson, who specialise in beautiful books. They just publish the most stunning books, and this is no different. I adore this. Again, this is a book where I wish these were prints. I need to do more research into the artist because I kind of want to buy their prints and hang them up on my wall. Plus some of these pages are sort of translucent tracing paper. I'm sure there's a proper artistic word for that, but it is so beautifully designed. Then we have tons of fact about prehistory, like prehistoric Earth, which I find absolutely fascinating. Having studied archaeology in my first year at university, I was really drawn to the prehistoric era and early humans. I just never continued studying it, so I do love any opportunity to be reacquainted with that, and this is, I think, a fun way for me as an adult to do that and really peruse some beautiful images whilst I'm at it. I mean, look at this. Look at this. That is so beautiful. This is the first real forests. Oh my goodness, I cannot. I'm just in love, and I know I would have loved this as a child as well. Then moving on, I did buy myself 4 books in January because I had an Amazon gift card that I got for Christmas, and I mean, let's be honest, what else was I going to spend it on other than books? So these are the books I ended up picking up with that gift card. The first one is the 3rd book in a series, and that is Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. So this is book 3, and I believe the final book in the Hot and Hammered contemporary romance series by this author. Now, I really enjoyed book 1, which was Fix Her Up. I thought it was complete cheesy, fun, frivolous, light-hearted, easy reading. Did not enjoy book 2. Book 2 I found incredibly frustrating. It had a lot of tropes I don't enjoy in romance in there, what felt like a very unhealthy relationship. But I loved book 1 so much that I knew I wanted to continue on and find out what would happen between the sort of final 2 characters in this series, because the female protagonist is the sister of the character from book 1, and then we also have a young man who's introduced in book 2. So like, I'm invested in them already based on the other 2 books, and I'm hoping it'll be more like book 1 than book 2 was. So yeah, it is just super cute. I don't read a ton of contemporary romance, but I have to say this series and Fix Her Up was the book that introduced me to the genre and what I might appreciate in it, so I value it for that as well. And they're just like easy, fun reading. They're all about one person or another who works for this same like construction company, and in this case we have a builder, and we have this woman who usually does the setup of houses after they've built them, but she wants to start her own company, and it's about getting him on side and falling in love at the same time. So yeah, excited for that one. We then have The Marrow Thieves by Sherry Dymeline, and I've been meaning to pick this one up for ages. I think it might be YA, and it's sort of YA dystopian horror fantasy, which is exactly what I'm in the mood for at the moment. It's set in a futuristic version of our world where the planet is in complete disrepair because of global warming. We have made our mark on it, and it's a horrendous mark and things are not going well, and we are following indigenous people of North America who are being hunted and harvested for their bone marrow. So I believe it's also going to draw on themes of like colonialism and racism and the settlement of America by non-Native Americans and the treatment of Native Americans, which I also think is going to be really, really interesting. I haven't read a ton of books by indigenous authors and I'm trying to correct that, so this is one that I thought sounded particularly interesting. We then have a book which I've been meaning to buy for ages, but I didn't necessarily feel like I needed immediately because I knew I probably wouldn't read immediately, although now that I have it, I am kind of compelled to read it, and that is Flush by Virginia Woolf. The reason I really wanted this was because of the edition. I had thought up until recently that I had the complete vintage special editions collection of Virginia Woolf's work, but it turned out there was also this edition of Flush which matched my other 5 books, so now I have the complete collection, and having a gift card always feels like the perfect opportunity to sort of like pick up little things like that which you don't necessarily feel like you can justify otherwise. So I'm really excited for this. My dad used to always recommend this book to me, and I think having this lovely new edition is really going to push me to read it. It is a autobiography, well it's not an autobiography, it's a biography. It's a fictional biography written by Virginia Woolf of a dog. So it's as if the dog has written its autobiography, if that makes sense, and it sounds so weird and wonderful, and this is what the inside looks like. These editions are stunning, plus super duper short. We then, last but not least, have another book that completes a collection for me, or at least completes what is currently out in that collection, and that is Hansel and Gretel by Jeanette Winterson, and this is from the Fairy Tale Revolution series. So this is a series of children's books, although they are quite text heavy. They're not like picture books. They do have illustrations, but lots of text as well. And they are all written by quite well-known authors already who have put their own stamp on a traditional fairy tale. And there are currently, like I said, another 3 books out in the series, which I already have, and this was the last one that I didn't have, so I really wanted to pick it up. Also because I do love the series, like I love fairy tale retellings, I love feminist takes on fairy tales, I love all of the authors who have written for the series. They're all incredible, and Jeanette Winterson is one of my favourites, so really excited to have this one on my shelves. We then have books that were gifts. So the first one was actually a Christmas gift that just came a little bit late in the post, and it's from my friend Jess, who knows me so well, and it is a little bit different because it's not a fiction book or even a narrative non-fiction book, it's a cookbook. And this is the Mildred's Cookbook, Delicious Vegetarian Recipes for Simply Everyone. So Mildred's is a vegetarian restaurant which I'm not sure, do they have locations outside of London? They definitely started in London, and there's at least 3 locations in London, but I'm not sure if they're anywhere else. And they are my favourite restaurant of all time. Obviously I don't live in London anymore, and even if I did, it's not like I'd be going out to restaurants at the moment, but I do miss them, and Jess is actually the person that introduced me to them. She took me there when she was living in London before I'd moved there, as like a little like evening out, and I was visiting, and ever since then I just fell in love, and it's so brilliant. Such tasty vegetarian food, really creative, and always just a lovely vibe. I think this picture on the front here is of their original location, which is the Soho one, the first one I went to, and probably my favourite because of that. And I'm just so excited to have my own Mildred's cookbook. I'm so excited to try some of the pieces from this. I have absolutely no doubt that I'll be doing some of these over the next few months because they look delicious, and hopefully it will make me feel like I am visiting my favourite restaurant, as I mentioned. So yeah, this was super thoughtful of Jess. I then have a book that was sent to me by the wonderful Keris over at Library of Keris, who is another booktuber. Obviously I just told you her channel name. An absolutely fabulous booktuber if you haven't checked her out, so I will have her linked in the description box down below. And she sent me this lovely, really thoughtful non-fiction book, which is 500 Years of Lies by Hayley Nolan. Sorry, it is Anne Boleyn, 500 Years of Lies by Hayley Nolan. This is all about Anne Boleyn, and I guess addressing all of the lies or misconceptions about her that have spread throughout history. Now, I know very little about this era of history, about Henry VIII, his wives, the English crown at that time, just not something I've ever learnt much about at all. But my best friend Jill, super duper into it, always talking about it, has always made me think I'd like to understand a little bit more. And then we went to see that musical 6 2 years ago, which was just like the best musical I've ever seen in my entire life. life, so much so that I've seen it a second time in person, would love to see it a third time, and constantly listen to the soundtrack. And that really cemented my interest in learning more about the women specifically of that era. So this is one that I believe was recommended to me, so I'd added it to my wish list to check out later, and I'm super pleased to have a copy now because I can finally learn more about the women of the musical Six as I now know them, rather than Henry VIII's wives. I then have 3 more gifts that were sent to me by very, very kind subscribers, and the first one is super exciting, although you might not quite understand why, because it's Eragon by Christopher Paolini, which, as you probably know, I've read many times before. I've read this book a ton of times. It's one of my favourite books of all time. I even have the audiobook, so I have easy access to listening to it, but I no longer have a physical copy which is in readable condition. I got the hardback of Eragon back when it came out, and I was probably like 12 or something like that. I can't remember the exact year it came out. Shall we double check? It first came out in 2005, so I would have been 13, and I adored that book, but I read it to death, to the point where it fell apart and is just unreadable. And I really, really wanted to sort of replace it and replace the whole collection gradually, so I had all of them in paperback because there's 4 books in the series, and I'd love to own them because I love to own my favourite books, because I often reread my favourite books, and be able to sort of reread it all again in paperback. I also never owned books 3 or 4 in the series ever. The same thing happened to book 2. I read it to death, but I never ever bought the physical books of the next 2 because they came out so many years later. I ended up getting them on audiobook. But this is a YA fantasy series about Eragon, who is a very, very new dragon rider, if you haven't heard me mention it before. So thank you so much to Tiffany for fulfilling my dream of finally owning a readable copy of Eragon as an adult. I cannot wait to reread it. I then have another book which I'm so excited about, and that is Flame of Seven Waters by Juliet Marillier. This is book 6 in the Seven Waters series, and currently one of 3 I didn't own before now. Now I only don't own 2. So 6 books, this is the 6th book. I own books 1, 2 and 3 in physical copy. I listened to books 4 and 5 on audiobook, and hadn't gotten around to finishing the series, mainly because I'm terrified of it being over. It's probably my favourite fantasy series of all time, so you know, that's saying something. And yeah, I've been putting it off, but now that I have a physical copy, I really cannot do that anymore. I need to finish what I'm calling my favourite fantasy series so I can actually vouch for the whole series. And again, I'm just really excited to have a physical copy, because since Seven Waters is one of my favourite series, I would really like to own all of the books in it, and now I own the last one, I can eventually pick up books 4 and 5 at some point, so I do own them all. I mean, my other ones are super beat up second-hand mass market paperbacks, and this is the first time I've had a fresh new one in the series, but I'm sure it will end up looking a little bit beat up once I've read it a few times. So a massive thank you to Chris for sending me this one. It was very, very, very thoughtful and kind of you. Then last but not least, I have the Ma Big Noggion, translated by Sinead Davis, which is a Welsh classic, a piece of ancient epic Welsh literature. And this was sent to me by a very, very kind subscriber, Rebecca, or Becca, who is actually Welsh herself, and that just makes it mean that little bit of extra. I feel like being gifted sort of like traditional literature of a culture by someone who's familiar with it, and it means a lot to means a lot to me as well. So I am super excited for this. I've been trying to expand my folklore range because I know a ton of Scottish folktales, I know a ton of Greek mythology, but I've been picking up more from different cultures so I can learn more, compare and contrast, and just expand. And this is one I never owned, and I don't know much about Welsh folklore at all, I guess, except for like Arthur, King Arthur and Merlin. That's probably like the only Welsh sort of legend I know. In fact, I think the Arthurian legends may be part of this. It says Celtic mythology, Arthurian romance, and an intriguing interpretation of British history. So yeah, I think there's going to be a ton of fun learning going on when I read this, as well as like pure enjoyment. So thank you so much to Rebecca. But those are all the books I had to show you in this book haul. I'm super excited about all of them. They're a really nice selection. I mean, I'm probably not going to read this one cover to cover, but I might share with you how my recipes go from it on Instagram if you'd be interested. And until then, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye everyone.